So in this video, we are going to discuss about internal control. So these are the contents of the video. Effective internal control system, internal control and other mechanisms to control the business. So here we are going to deal about internal control systems. So first we'll have a discussion about what is internal control, so that we'll get a clear idea about how this works in a real company. Assume you are the owner of a business and have 100 employees in your business. How can you ensure that they are working for the benefit of the business? How can you ensure that they are not doing any error or fraud? Even if they do error or fraud, can you find it? Or better, can you prevent it? So this is where the internal control systems come into play. See, when there are like few employees, like 10 employees in your company, you as an owner, you can have a direct control with each and every employee. But when the number of employees are going to increase, then you don't have a personal contact with the employees in your business. So what happens, you can't go and control them on an everyday basis or also on a one-on-one basis. So what happens is, you should have a system, okay, a kind of rules, regulation, process, procedure through which employees have to work in a set manner, okay. So they can't deviate from the given set of procedures. They have to work within a set of procedures and processes. So if they work according to that, it helps the company to minimize the level of error and fraud. So it is all about like following the rules, okay. So the top management is one which creates this kind of internal control systems, or simply we can call it as rules. So once these rules have been framed and all the employees in your company follows these rules, we can ensure that the company works in a smooth manner. So that is what is an internal control system is. So internal control systems meaning is, it involves everything that controls risks to an organization. So if we have a proper internal control in our company, it will reduce the risks to an organization. So this is a much more detailed meaning. Internal control is a process, so it is a series of activities, rules which a company has to follow, or all the employees have to follow, of assuring an organization's objective. If we are going to follow, if all the employees in a company are going to follow the rules and regulations, it helps in assuring an organization's objective, okay. So it helps in achieving the objectives. If we have a proper internal control, it helps in achieving the organization's objectives. So where does internal control help us is, it helps us in operational effectiveness and efficiency. So what is operational effectiveness and efficiency is, so when we make a sales, there can be a fraud or error, okay. So we create rules and regulations, how a sale has to be made, how it is to be accounted, how the cash has to be received, okay, how we have to give a bill, okay, or all these things, all these kinds of regulations on rules which are happening inside a company helps us in achieving operational effectiveness and efficiency. Just imagine if we don't have a proper invoice system, if we don't have a proper kind of a billing system, then we might lose a few sale data. So what happens, we might not receive the cash properly from the customer. We would have sold it to a customer who is not of good background, or we would have lost a sales invoice somewhere. So when we don't have a proper system of control, it leads to inefficiency. So that is where internal control system plays. So internal control system can be in any operational area, something like sales, purchase, production, distribution. It can be in any operational area of a business. So when all these records and all these bills, invoices, okay, and these accounting records are properly maintained and all the rules are rigorously followed, then that will result in a reliable financial reporting, because the sales number are more trustable, the purchase number is more trustable, the inventory number is more trustable, because these records are like properly kept and followed by the company. So when all records are properly kept, then the numbers which are in your financial reporting is much more better. So when we have all the records proper, it also helps us in complying with the laws, regulations and policies of the government. So this is where internal control system helps us. So our company should have all these things right: the policies, the processes, the task, and the behavior of employees. If these things are properly aligned, it will help us to reduce fraudulent schemes, scams, pilferage, and theft. So how can we do this? How can we ensure that our internal control systems are proper in nature?
So if you guys really like the video, put a like for us and share it with your friends who might find it useful. So if you guys have any queries or questions, post it in the comment section. We'll be like happy to answer them.
So we can ensure that through control activities. So there are like many control activities. One of them, the first one is segregation of duties. So what we do is we never allow one person to do an entire activity fully. So for example, in an accounts payable, assume that we have bought something on a credit purchase, that creates an accounts payable. So when we want to make a payment to the credit purchase, how it works? See, one person receives the account payable. Okay, the accountant is responsible for only making the entry for it. The manager is responsible for making the payment of the credit purchase, and person in charge of payment, and there's another person who hands over the money to the credit to our supplier. So see how it works. The accountant makes the entry, the manager makes the authorization of payment, another person actually makes the payment. So there are like three people who are like involved here. So what happens is just there is only one person who is doing all the activities. The accountant will make an entry, he will authorize by himself, he will make the payment to the supplier. What would happen? He will not make the actual payment, but he will show in records that he has made the payment. So there can be a problem like taking a little bit of money to his own account, and he uses that money for a longer time. Only when the accounts are going to get settled, for assume that only once in a year we are going to settle the accounts and review the accounts, this accountant will get caught only at the end of the year. So when we allow one single person to deal with all the activities, the chance of error and fraud is much more higher. That's why we go for segregation of duties. So the second one is authorization. For every particular transaction, there should be another person who authorizes. For example, so this is about the segregation of duties. So the next one is authorization. The manager. So for every work, there should be another person who authorizes a subordinate's work. Why we have it? Because it's another concept similar to segregation of duties. The problem is accountant can actually say that we have to make a payment to a supplier. Okay, the accountant and the supplier can be friendly, and he might ask the cashier to make the payment. Actually, payment is not even required to be made. They can make a fraudulent or a erroneous payment here. So that can be a kind of a problem. To reduce that problem, we have another thing called as an authorization, where the manager should ensure that this payment should be like actually made. Okay, and it is a real payment that has to be made, and it is also accounted, and it is also actually paid. So that is where authorization comes into play. So it is usually a supervisor role. So the next one is retention of records. Whenever we make any kind of sale, purchase, or payment of salary or purchase of machinery, whatever we do, we should always have a record. For example, in sales, we have customers query. Okay, then we create a quotation for him, then he purchases, we raise an invoice. Okay, then he makes a payment. So all these records have to be maintained by the company. So because once the records have been maintained, then we could make journal entries, and we could transfer them to the financial accounts, and for financial accounts we can prepare the final accounts. So retention of records is always a mandatory thing. The next one is called as top level reviews. See, the people at the lower level can indulge in some kind of an error or a fraud. So periodically the top level management has to ensure that how these lower level people are like working. So how do they know that? They can find out, the top level managers get reports like this month on month sales report, month on month purchase report, total cash flow statement, okay, total profitability statement per month. So they get every month on month statements like this. through which they can have an effective control like what is happening. For example, if the sales on a month-on-month basis is very high, okay, we can find out whether it's actually high or it is like fraudulently high. Whether even in the case of like purchase, like month on month, this month we have made a huge amount of purchase, then why have we made purchase like that? So this kind of analysis can be made at the using the top level reviews. So next one is supervision. So every employee should have a supervisor or else he won't work properly. We can have physical safeguards, something like usage of cameras, locks, physical barriers to protect property such as merchandise, inventory. So even physical safeguards are required and a part of control activities. We have IT general controls, ITCG. So assume that a company uses computers and systems. We have to ensure that only people who have access to it should use. So we have things like password and the review of access log. So review of access log is every time someone logs into the system stores who has logged and through which login ID it has been they have logged in. So with that we can find out who has logged in, how many times they have logged in, what they have accessed, we can find out. So this is a kind of a control system. So we can use a password to prevent unauthorized entries, and we can use review of access logs to find out who has logged into the system. So it also takes into account change management, incident management. For example, someone changes the database or changes the data entry, that is called as change management. We should always have a backup system to all the data that we have, so that someone crashes a system or some kind of virus comes in, we should have a backup management. Access management, just now we saw of review of access logs. Incident management, so some kind of incidents like break-ins or theft of a hard drive, those kind of systems also have to be maintained. So this can be like linked with the physical safeguards. So this is about the IT general controls. So the next one is IT application control. So earlier we saw the access to a computer, the backup of the database, okay, and the physical breakup of the computer systems and hard drive. Now in IT application controls, we are concerned about the software, okay. So the first one we'll discuss about is the input. In input, it is about the data which is being like collected and captured. If you go to a supermarket, you might find out that there's an employee at the billing counter where he bills all the items. So he is a very important kind of person because he is the first person who actually captures the data and puts it in the database. So he have to properly bill in terms of number of items, okay, the total value of the item, and which item is being sold. So all these things he should have correctly captured. So he should not like put, for example, a 5 rupees biscuit has been sold. He should not enter it as a 5 rupees biscuit of another company. So if it's A company's biscuit, he should enter it as A's company's biscuit, not as B's company's biscuit, because if the data input is wrong, then the entire reporting will actually go for a toss. So processing, how this information is being calculated, is the calculation proper, okay, is the recording proper, is it like properly input into the database? All this is called as a processing. For example, we can get a month-on-month sales report, okay, area-wise sales report, geographical-wise sales report, salesman-wise sales report. So we can, even in a sales report, we can get it in terms of many ways. It's not in one way we can get a report, we can generate it in many ways. So whether our software is processing this data input properly is we have to find out. So that is a IT application control. The next one is the output. See, not all people should have access to the output because all employees in a company are not of same cadre. So CEOs should have an access to the entire database. The middle level manager, something like finance manager, should only have control over the should get report about the financial elements alone, okay. So the lower level management should only get the reports which are useful to them. So it's called as sending results, reporting, collecting data. So it's about each person should be given a login and a control, a login and a password through which only his area of activities should be viewed. So a marketing manager should not be able to view in terms of HR's database, or a HR should not be able to view a finance person's database. So only those persons who have, to whom the data is useful, that data alone they should be allowed to view. So that is called as IT application controls. How we capture data, how we process the data, how we create an output, and to whom it is to be sent. That is called as IT application controls.
So if you guys really like the video, put a like for us and share it with your friends who might find it useful. So if you guys have any queries or questions, post it in the comment section. We'll be like happy to answer them. If you guys have any other ideas for further videos, you can put it in the comment section. We'll be like creating a new video on that topic also. So thank you guys. We'll meet in the next video.